House needs painting, grass needs mowing, where's he at?
Hi, this is Hank. Sorry I missed your call. Leave me your name and your number and I'll get back to you.
He's gone fishing.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Mossy Oak and LiquiMoly.
Hello and welcome to Off the Water with Hank Parker. I'm your co-host Sarah Beth, and you are?
I'm Hank Parker, and Sarah Beth, it's so good to see you, sweetie. We're going to have us a great podcast today. I'm all excited.
All right, awesome. You have a special guest for us today. Would you like to introduce?
I am. It's my buddy Chad Chandler, and I'm going to say right up front, we're going to make a lot of professional fishermen upset over this show. They've kept this glide bait that Chad makes secret for a long time. And there are a lot of top pros. We won't call names or anything like that, but they're going to be a little upset that we're doing a podcast about their secret bait. We're going to let the secret out of the bag.
Yeah.
So now, Sarah, are you going to stay with us, or are you going to go back there and run the keyboard?
I think I can run it from here. Just know if you see me looking off to the side, I'm producing this thing as we go.
Okay, we got it. Hello, my buddy Chad. How you doing?
Hey, Brother Hank, good to see you. Good to see Sarah Beth, and thank you so much for the invite and for the opportunity to be on your podcast. I've been watching it since day one, and rarely miss one, and enjoy all the insight, all the stories, and especially all the history. But most of all, I really always appreciate the spiritual application and aspect. There are so many verse-wearing tournament pros that are afraid, I feel, to leverage the platform God has given them to build the kingdom. And I respect you so much that you without fear, always seek to build the kingdom and put Christ first. And so it's just a privilege to be here today.
What you're saying is you like to cut right through the chaff and go to what's really important.
Well, I just say I appreciate that you use all of your media for building the kingdom, and that means so much. And so I'm so proud to be here today.
Well, man, it is so good to have you. You got a special bait. Now, Sarah, look at these baits. These things are handmade.
And you said these are glide baits. Let me see.
Hey, look here.
Let me hold it up for the camera.
Yeah, I'm going to hold this one up because here's the Mac Daddy. This is where it all started.
Oh, snap.
Don't you let it stick your finger. Look at that.
Almost did.
A glide bait is something that, Chad, that I have had more giant fish follow and not been able to capitalize on. And you came out with this smaller version, and I'm able to catch fish. I have a few follow-ups, but it's exactly opposite of the big one. The big one, I have way more follow-ups than I do catches. With the smaller one, I have probably more catches than I do follow-ups that turn and go the other way. So it's really cool, the whole glide bait concept. And you grew up right there where my grandson fishes on Lake Fontana a lot, and Chateau.
Yes, sir.
And that's your home territory. So I'll tell you how the whole glide bait deal got started for me. I knew nothing much about them. And there were a few top pros that they really played that whole glide bait thing close to the vest. They didn't want that thing out too much. Well, when we got to Redcrest in Charlotte, my grandson Boone was with me, and people were standing in line paying $350 for a bait. $350. Now, I'm a tightwad. And I looked over at Boone and I said, Boone, who in the world would pay $350 for a bait? And he looked at his shoes. He was guilty. He's one of them. He stood in line over there and paid a deposit and ordered one. He didn't even get it.
He didn't even get it?
No.
Oh, we had to pre-order it.
Yeah, it took 3 or 4 months to get it. So he's telling me that there's a guy in his class that his dad had caught 2 or 3. Now, you'll appreciate this, Chad. He had caught 2 or 3 fish over 10 pounds out of the mountain lakes there, Chateau, Fontana, Santilla, and he caught these big giant bass. And, Boone and his dad, my son Hank Jr., they've been out there fishing, and 3 pounds about top for them. and his buddy's dad's caught 10-pounders. So he discovered his buddy's dad kind of kept it a secret, but his son let the cat out of the bag to Boone that he caught him on a big glide bait. And Boone had to have one. And, of course, he paid $350 for his first one. Now, what is this bait right here, Chad? What does this bait retail for? What do you sell this bait for?
I sell that for $150. That's our 8.75 gizzard glide, and we've got a 7-inch as well.
Yeah, that bait is awesome. And, I mean, I get so many follow-ups. You wouldn't believe how many big fish are in a lake until you just dedicate a day and go throw that glide bait all day long. And I've done it and not caught a single fish, not caught a fish, but had 5 or 6 giants, I mean giants, follow that thing up that I would have never known they were there. So it's pretty amazing. And some of these pros, they've kind of got it figured out on how to increase their catch ratio versus follow-up. And so that is what I'm going to pick your brain about. Now, you started out, you fished all around the Chattanooga, Tennessee area. You pastored there. You pastored over on around Lake Chateau. So that's your stomping grounds. And then you left and have started a church in Wisconsin. Where in Wisconsin?
We're in Minocqua, Wisconsin. We're in the North Woods, the far northeast corner of the state of Wisconsin, a little town called Minocqua in Oneida County.
Oneida County. Now, what is your closest water there where you fish?
Well, just let me say there are more lakes per surface area in Oneida County and Vilas County than any other 2 counties in the United States of America. So when I was a boy, it was a 45-minute drive out to the Allman boat ramp. We'd go see Jim Mathis and drop in.
No, Jim.
We had a house. Yes, sir. We had a houseboat at Larka, and so we stayed in Larka Creek a lot. And it was just that's just what you knew. Well, I can drop my boat into the water in less than 5 minutes here. We live in a neighborhood, so it's never a matter of the lake, but which lake. And somebody's got to do it, so I'm thankful God sent us here.
That is awesome. Now, are you close to the Mississippi at all?
No, sir. We're about 4 hours from all the pool fishing over on that side.
Okay.
And these are more crater lakes, all natural lakes. There's a few lakes that they call flowages that are on the Wisconsin River, but the majority of all of our lakes are natural. They just rise and flow with the rain that comes in. It's completely different than anything that I grew up fishing. I mean, I literally am getting to live out the shows that like I saw you do in Canada and the lender guys growing up, and I'll just sit and my brother and I'll be like, man, and the old Virgil Ward shows, we'd be like, man, I wish we could go. And now I'm getting to do it, and I thank God for it.
Now, Sir Beth, you've never done any of that. All these natural lakes up there, they call them glacier lakes. It came when the water froze and it created lakes. And that is so phenomenal. And it's hard to even fathom how many lakes that are these glacier lakes. And I mean, the Great Lakes are all glacier lakes. It's crazy. Now, they've been altered some with some dams and canals and different things, but it's pretty amazing.
It's pretty cool, yeah. And I don't go because Hank Parker just takes off and doesn't tell nobody where he's going. And then it's like, oh, where's Pawpaw? Oh, he's been gone for 4 days. He's in Canada. Oh, okay.
Well, I try to sneak off a little bit. And Sarah Beth loves to fish. Now, she has a hard time. She runs camera for me sometimes, and it's pretty difficult for her to be patient when I'm catching fish. When we almost need to take time out and let her catch a few where she can get her fix, because she loves it.
Get her fix. God, you make me sound like an addict. That's crazy.
Well, that's kind of what fishing is. We're hooked on fishing, not on drugs. That's a pretty good campaign. So I'd a whole lot rather need a fix from a bass than I would be from some sort of illegal drug.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, Chad, I'm going to go back to your glide bait. Now, I'm going to tell you something, and you may not want to share this completely. I might be getting into some top secrets, but when I first saw this bait, I saw that you had taken braided line and tied the hooks instead of using a split ring. Now, I know the answer to this, but you're the first person that ever told me this was you. I'd never heard that before. I'd never done that before. I'd never seen that before. So explain to me, why would you take braided line and go through all that aggravation and trouble to double loop that line and tie that braid versus a split ring that's so much easier?
Okay. There are just some baits, because of the way they position in the fish's mouth, can be the size, because they're so flat and longer. It gives the fish an opportunity, once it hits it, leverage, because when the fish repositions the bait as far as movement, it can pull that hook out of the fish's mouth, because the hook binds against the split ring and the split ring binds against the hook hanger, and there's no movement. And there's some bait makers and some guys that still pour, resin baits. They'll put swivels in there for hook hangers, and so that will eliminate that. But a lot of the early baits that I built with swivels, and I was using a major company's swivel, and they brand them as, they're the strongest, and they were great. But it's metal on metal, and at some point I broke off on a good fish. And so it's not something that I came up with, just began to research and look. And that was the best way to take away that aspect, because that's, as a growing angler, you're always trying to eliminate anything between you and the fish that can decrease your percentage opportunities of getting the fish in the boat. And I don't care whether you're fishing for $100,000 or you're just fishing on the weekend. Nobody that loses a 5-pounder at the boat says, well, that was as good as getting it in. You want to touch it, you want to feel it, and you want a picture. And so I wanted to take all of those variables out. And so we hand tie all our hooks on with a 100-pound braid. And there's a process you can do it. I've done a video for the Muskie Shop, but there's a lot of different guys you can find on YouTube that have done them. It's a really simple process, but I do it for every bait that's in my box. But the ones that are really excel for are larger swim baits, stroking spoons, silver buddies. Those were always really bad to lose fish, especially with the ones that had the little clip hooks on there. Lipless baits can really present a problem sometimes, but I put them on all my jerk baits, crank baits, every bait I've got in my tackle box. I've just sat down and tied the hooks on. And so that takes away that opportunity for the fish to have up its percentages of getting off.
If I bought you a plane ticket to Charlotte and come pick you up, would you come tie all of my baits with?
Brother, I'll do it. You just got to let my boy take a picture of me tying all your hooks on those, so you can tell all these friends.
Hey, I have discovered there are so many top pros that are doing that, especially lipless crankbaits and small little Danny crankbaits. They don't want the weight of a split ring, and they'll tie.
That's right.
I'm amazed at that, and so
right.
I want to go watch your video and see how to do it, because I'll be honest with you, I've tried that and I haven't figured out a knot that works for me. I've done a very pitiful job, so I need to learn that process.
You've only got to the one knot you have to learn is a half hitch. Once you double it and put it through, you just have to make a little simple half hitch and turn it over, and then it's just a square knot, right over left, left over right. Cinch it down on a little finishing nail. That's your spacer. And it really is. If you can tie an FG knot, you can tie this.
No, I cannot tie FG. I've given up.
If you can tie a Palomar knot.
Okay, I'm good with the Palomar. Yeah, I tie a double unit. FG, I'm done with it, man. That thing, it drove me crazy. I got Sarah Beth. Tell us about the FG knot, Sarah Beth.
Oh, my God. Made me say a bad word, I'll tell you that.
I'm telling you.
Oh, well, I came over there. I don't even remember why I'd walked over to your boat
Because
office.
I called
but I
you.
did. Oh, yeah, you did, didn't you? You called me to come over here. He's like, can you come help me with something? I was like, all right. So I walk over there. He's like, I need you to tie this knot. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, how bad can this be? Well, 2 hours later, and about 50 times I scroll into the same YouTube video to like replay it over and over and over again to try to figure out how to do it.
Hey, and she tied a few that I thought were good, and I tied a few that I thought were good. We went to New York and started smallmouth fishing. They came undone on me.
Snapped.
I am so done with the FG. I want to shoot it.
Operator error on that one. I can tell
I
you.
know.
It's operator error.
I'm not blaming the knot, but it is sure a complicated, aggravating thing to tie. So I tie a double uni knot. When I put my braided line with my fluorocarbon, I tie a double uni, and it's simple, it's easy. It's got just a little bit more bump coming through the guides than the FG, but not much, and I can tie it in my sleep. So I'm sticking with it.
I hear you.
All right, going back to the glide baits, tell us the difference between fishing with a glide bait in Wisconsin versus the difference fishing a glide bait in Tennessee or on Lake Chickamauga.
Certainly the clarity is part of it. And we caught some really, really good fish before we moved. We really didn't start a business until God really started calling us to transition from pastor. And I'd been a full-time pastor for 20 years and had just had a hobby and had made some different baits and really started moving out of swimmers, which are multi-joint swim baits, into glide baits. And I'd played around with them just a little bit when I was pastoring in Hayesville, near Chateau Lake, but really didn't get into them heavy and probably to the last 5 years. But I don't care where in the country you go, the clarity will always be a determining factor.
Yes.
But the glide bait has such drawing power because swimmers will come through, with a very serpentine action. Mm-hmm. But glide baits, there's three classes of glide baits. There are wide slaloming baits, just like somebody that's slaloming behind a boat on a water ski. And then there are chopping baits that they just walk the dog under the water. And then they're hybrid baits, and that's what we build. We build baits that you can still get a wide slalom, but you can also chop on demand, and you can get both. And it's all about the parting angle of the bait. Your wide slalom baits are going to have a narrower parting angle. That means that's as far as they would go in the water, and that makes them go out really wide. Chopping baits have almost a 90-degree a break line. We tie ours with about 45, and that way you can get both out of it. But it's all about the drawing power. And last night my boy and I went and fished the last full moon. We'll be able to fish in October, and we've developed kind of a little system of cleanup. And I developed it on when I was pastoring on Hayesville. I could run any brush pile on Chateau from September through late October to right when turnover would start, and I could throw top water over any brush pile, and I'd found a bunch of them. And if I didn't get bit, and this is way before forward-facing sonar, I knew fish were in the pile. If I didn't get bit, I knew that top water had got them hot and bothered. They were looking up, they were stirred up. And if they didn't come up and hit, I could take a swim jig and throw it behind it, 3/4 ounce swim jig, and just slow roll it. And almost 9 out of 10 times, they'd load up and you'd get bit. And so the drawing power of that top water would really get them excited, and then you could follow up with it. And we found the same thing with glide baits here. And there's cabbage. We'd never had that down in the south, at least I hadn't. But there's lots of hydrilla, lots of coontail, and I've got a 5-inch swimmer, herring swimmer. I sent you once a little disco green. That's a little bit tiny. That's it. So it's a 5-inch version. We were slow rolling a perch pattern, and we're catching some small walleye and some smaller fish. Well, then I saw one muskie and got out the 8.75, and we were pulling bass out of 30 feet of water. They would be down on the bottom in the grass, and they would just shoot straight to the top and look and go back down and shoot and go all the way. And so my boy put on our gizzard swimmer that we've got. I haven't sent you one of these yet, but I will. It's a 7-inch 3-piece, and the smallmouth would come by. You got them hot and bothered with the glide, and you could come behind and fish cleanup. Sometimes they'll hit the glide. I caught a fairly good muskie last night on the 8.75. But it's the drawing power. It'll show you where they are, and then you can follow up with a Ned rig. It helps you locate fish, because forward-facing sonar will not help you find a fish that's buried a foot deep in hydrilling cabbage. It will not.
Yep.
But if you can pull them out, it'll show you where those fish are, and it'll show you how they're reacting, and then you can follow up, and you can catch them on a lot of different finesse approaches.
I grew up in the Carolinas, and when I started fishing professionally, I had never fished a Zara spook. And I didn't know anything about walking topwater baits. And then I started drawing people from Missouri or the Midwest, and all of a sudden, man, that is their go-to, man. If you don't have a spook, you're not in the ball game. And it's amazing how different. I fished with Roger Moore, who he finished second in the '74 Bassmaster Classic that Tommy Martin won in Tennessee. But Roger was a real big spook fisherman. Shorty Evans, I'd fished with Shorty Evans. He was, and they would walk that thing much, much faster. Right. And they fished it in really, really clear water in the Ozarks. And I came back and I thought, man, I've learned a new lure for North Carolina. And I fished Lake Wiley a lot. And, man, the fish would eat it up on Lake Wiley, but they wanted a big, wide. Man, they wanted it very deliberate. Fished it a lot different. Roger would walk that thing so fast, and he would keep it moving, and it was very successful in that clear water. But that is not what you needed once we got in this dark water on Lake Wiley. Right. They wanted that big, wide wobble. Well, I found, and of course, you just explained that with the different cuts that you have on your glide bait. Same situation. Sometimes they want that thing walking real wide, and other times they want it a little bit tighter. And I've seen that, on my follow-ups. I hadn't caught many, and I've not been successful. If I get a fish to follow a spook, I can throw a jerkbait behind that spook a lot of times and catch a fish. And I've tried that with a glide bait, throwing a jerkbait. But what I have not done that I need to do, I lost my little fishing buddy. He went and spent the whole summer in Montana. Now he's in college at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. So I don't have Boone. But what I really need is to have a glide bait fisherman in the front, and I need to stand on standby with that jerk bait behind him and be quicker, or a fluke or something of that nature to see if I can get them to respond and jump on them. Because, some of these fish are 9, 10 pounds that you don't even think exist in a lake, and then they follow that glide bait.
It's changed our mindset toward fishing in the sense of, your trophy fishing. When I was a boy, I just wanted to catch a fish. I didn't care if it's bluegill, smallmouth, crappie. I grew up in West North Carolina, so we called them crappie. But then
Me too.
Pastored in Alabama. Pastored in Alabama, and they didn't know what I was talking about. But as you grow, I wanted to start catching bigger fish. And so one of the approaches we've had is we mark fish. And so if we see a big muskie, if we see a big smallmouth, and we'll mark that on GPS, and we know where he lives now. And so we're going to come back and hit that waypoint 50 meters to the left and 50 meters to the right, just like a brush pile. And so I know he's in there, and I'm going to hit that place again during the day because I know where he lives. The drawing power of that larger bait made him show himself, and so I know where he's at now, and I'm going to come back and fish him again later in the day 2 or 3 times. And that's one of those ways that we approach it, instead of just continue on down the bank and passing. If I see a big one, he's going to see me again before the day's over.
That is wild you said that. I fished Lake of the Woods a couple of years ago with some guys from one of the sponsor companies that I worked with, and it was a whole group of us, and we were going to have a shore lunch and just have a big time. We were catching a lot of walleye and smallmouth and some northern. And our guide that we were fishing with, he said, I got three waypoints where there's muskie. And I thought, well, it must be good muskie habitat where those waypoints are. And so, dang, if we didn't have like 2 out of the 3 hit our bait, we didn't catch them. I was throwing a big suic, and another boy was throwing a big inline bucktail spinner. Right. And we both got hits on 2 of the ones. And so I asked him, I said, do you have any more habitat? He said, oh, the habitat's the same. He said, these are places where they live. We've drawn them up. We've had them hit multiple times. I said, so you're telling me that muskie is like a deer or an animal, that this is where he lives? He said, that's exactly 100%. Right. Yeah, and sure. I never heard that before. You know, we pattern a bass, and he might be here today and over here tomorrow, a mile away. And forward-facing sonar shown me that may not be a day later, it might be an hour later, and that rascal's gone a mile. So, right. But that muskie, I was blown away. He said, oh, no, we're not talking about muskie habitat. We're talking about muskie that we've had follow up that we know live there. And that right. That muskie, that's his territory. That's his point.
It is. And we've tried to treat larger black bass the same way. And I know studies show them moving here, moving there, but I'm coming back within the day, and we're going to hit that area. And a lot of the placed habitat that they have here, they call cribs. We just call them brush piles. But they'll build these little log cabin style things on top of the ice, and then they'll fall through in the thaw. And those are like brush piles. Randy Howe told me years ago he had a buddy that built rock piles in the winter up north. I had no idea what he's talking about. The guy spent all winter driving out and piling rock piles up on top of the ice, and when the ice would melt, they'd fall straight through the ice. I thought, man, that is awesome. So we find where one's at. He may have moved, but a lot of times he's still there, and but it was the drawing power of the bait that made him show himself. And we're going to come back and see him again. The
St. Lawrence River's full of them, and I never figured it out. Dick Garlock was a friend of mine that was a professional fisherman, and Dick lived in Alex Bay in New York. And you talk about these cribs, and they were just a basket full of rocks. And I thought, how in the world are you going to load up a boat and get a boat? He said, oh, no, they don't load a boat. They drive a truck. How you going to drive a truck on the water? Well, this water freezes about 3 foot thick in the winter. And they go out there and take a basket and fill that thing full of rocks. And they put it strategically, they'll hook a rope to it with a pickup truck and drive it and drag it right on the point where they want it and park it. And then when the ice melts, it just falls through, and there it is, a box of rocks.
I love it.
Would you ever thought about something like that, Sarah Beth?
No.
You wouldn't have?
No. Well, I could have come up with some kind of redneck engineering for something, but that's pretty smart, honestly.
It is smart. Have you ever done any ice fishing, Sarah Beth?
No, I've actually never been anywhere that's been cold enough to have that thick of ice over a lake. So
I don't like all that ice fishing. Have you gotten used to all that popping and cracking and stuff yet?
I've got a safety standard, so I don't go out on the water until snowmobiles are safe enough to drive. So I will walk on it until I've never cared much about men's opinion anyway, so they can make fun of me. But when it's safe enough for a snowmobile to drive on it, it's safe enough for Chad to walk on it. So I never hear cracking.
I tell you, I was at Spirit Lake, Iowa, up there working with Berkeley on some fishing line, and they said, we're going to take you ice fishing this afternoon. I said, okay, something I've never done before. And 2 funny things happened there. One, going out there, they're driving motorhomes out on this ice.
Yeah, sure.
It's scaring me to death, and it's making the awfulest popping and cracking, and they just think I'm a sissy. I'm scared to death. I am nowhere near that motorhome. I take a hard left and get about a half a mile from that motorhome, and he's just driving out there with popping and cracking. I said, oh.
No, sir.
But I had a little guy there named Sam, and his dad was one of the engineers that made Trilene Line, and I'm looking down in this ice hole, and I'm looking and I'm watching these fish, and I'm looking at my lure, and it's kind of like forward-facing sonar, but I'm looking at them live, and I'm watching them changing my bait around. And it'd been going on for a little while, and I kept rubbing my neck, and old Sam said, Mr. Parker, we got a monitor right there in front of us. I said, well, I don't need a monitor. I can look and see the fish. And so I fished for about another 2 hours. I said, my neck is killing me. He said, yeah, that's why we got the monitor. I didn't figure that out, but I'm going to tell you, these guys were forward-facing sonar all day. I see why they put that thing on a pole and they can pull it up there, because, man, it kills your neck.
It will if you stare at it all day. It sure will.
You know what they call that? They call that tech neck.
Tech neck.
When somebody's so bent over their screens, like a lot of people that work in IT, they get that.
Well, I like that. So everybody teaches me a lot of things. Tech neck.
Yep.
Oh, I got a bad neck, so I don't need to be looking at too much tech.
You don't do that anyway.
I do some of it, I've tried to get good with forward-facing sonar, and I might be one of the only people that that is totally neutral. I don't really care. I enjoy the challenge, and it's been exciting for me trying to learn a new method and a new technique, and it is game altering, and it is a controversial topic. But at the end of 3 years now that I've been doing this, I'm going to conclude that it is not as much fun as traditional fishing for me.
No.
For me, it's not. I just don't enjoy it near as much as I do when I just go fishing. And so for the last really 3 years, almost every time I went fishing for fun, just by myself, I concentrated on forward-facing sonar because I really wanted to get good at it. And I'm not good at it at all. I've caught a lot of fish using it, and I understand a little bit of it, but I just don't enjoy it like I do traditional setting a pattern or trying to eliminate water through lures and techniques that I'm familiar with. To me, that's a lot more fun.
To me, it's just another tactic for finding them and catching them. I treat it just like, there's throwing a crankbait, there's a jerk bait, Carolina rig, a Ned rig, drop shot. There's all these different techniques for catching fish. And I mix within that as a filter using forward-facing sonar. My boy and I did one of the things that I despise doing, and it's throwing a wacky rig. There's some guys that love it. For me, it's just nothing that I love to do, but it's all they were hitting the last Friday. It was 82, and for up here, that's scorching, and it was dead calm. And the only thing we could get them to rise on over grass was a wacky rig, and so we used it. But I had rather been throwing a 3-piece swim bait, small, with a little bit of ripple on the water, and just burning it across the top of grass and not looking at anything. That's what I'd rather do.
Wow.
But I'm going to do whatever I have to do to catch the fish that's within fair chase. And to me, it is. But I'm with you. There are different techniques I'd rather do, but I'm going to do what I have to do to catch the fish, because I don't want to be one of those guys that comes in and just says, but it was a real pretty day.
Well, I tell you, I got a buddy of mine, and he fishes a Texas rig worm or Carolina rig worm, and that's one of the two is all he's throwing all the time. And I can't tell you how many times he's made me put down my chatterbait or my jerkbait or my crankbait or my top water and pick up that crazy Carolina rig. He catches fish behind me. I'm fishing my guts out, and he's just back there hammering them. So he forces you. So I guess your son started throwing the wacky worm, and he forced you to wacky worm because he was tearing them up. You weren't.
I didn't like it.
I've been there and done that many, many times,
yes,
but I'm not, I don't really have any technique that I don't like other than that big, giant spoon is just so much work. And the glide bait's a lot of work. Throwing that big glide bait, Luz makes a very, very heavy rod that I love to throw that bait on, and getting the right rod takes a lot of the work out of it. I had 2-limber rod, and it worked me to death. And Lou's got a rod called Heavy Duty, and man, it is the right setup, and it makes it a lot easier. So the glide bait really is not nearly as physically demanding as jerking that big old spoon up off the bottom.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
And I never enjoyed the larger, but that medium size 6 to 7 inch spoon. There are times on those herring lakes, especially over deeper brush, you can absolute blister fish.
It's crazy. It is just crazy. Yeah, they will bite that, and I've learned that a lot. You know, the forward-facing sonar guys that are so good at it, they use a variety of baits, but that big spoon is one of their arsenal. Everybody talks about the minnow. The minnow is by far the dominant bait for forward-facing, but there are a lot of other methods and techniques that are very effective, and that spoon's one of them.
Absolutely. And stroking a like a Stan Sloan type spinner bait, that's one a lot of guys don't talk about, but that thing will glow on forward-facing sonar. You know, just stroking it, the old Zorro Stan Sloan, just stroking it right over the top of grass and letting it fall. That thing glows on forward-facing sonar.
You could have said the Hank Parker spinner bait, but that's okay. Well, I like Stan. Stan was a good friend of mine.
If you really want to catch him, though, it's that Hank Parker tournament series.
There you go.
Hey,
The
not
classic.
sponsored. No ads.
That's the only spinner bait you throw in it, Sarah Beth.
It's the only one I get my hands on, really.
3/4 ounce. 3/4.
There you go. That's the only one Sarah Beth gets for free. So if it's free, it's for me, right?
Amen.
Oh, Lord. All right. Well, let's talk about what's important, man. Now, did you serve in the military?
Yes, sir. I was a rifle platoon leader with the 82nd Airborne. After I got out of Ranger School, I was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division as a platoon leader for 3 years.
So you were Army Ranger.
99. Yes, sir.
I'm going to tell you.
I still am.
Once a Ranger, always a Ranger.
Always.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I'm appreciative. Thank you so much for your service. I tell you, we have a country that's got lots of problems, but it's still the best country in the world. And
that's right.
Amen to that.
We wouldn't have it if it weren't for the dedicated people that served in our military. And I'm very, very grateful for that. I always try to recognize and tell veterans how much I appreciate their service. And so I say the same to you. Thank you so much. And
yes, sir.
One of the hardest lessons I ever learned in my life, I used to take Special Forces guys on a fishing trip down to a place called Kingfisher Society in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And I would have all these Special Forces guys, and some of them may be Navy SEALs, and some of them may be Rangers. And one day it was freezing cold, and the wind was blowing, and it was pouring down rain, and I was miserable. And I had a Ranger in my boat, and I said, "Are you ready to go in?" He said, "No." I said, "I'm about to freeze to death." He said, "I'll just put it out of your mind." I said, "Put it out of my mind. My hands are blue. I can't even fish." I said, "When you going to go in?" He looked over there, and there was a seal about half a mile down the lake, and he said, "I'm going to go in when he goes in."
That's exactly right.
So they froze me to death. I've learned the lesson. I'm not going to. I'm not doing that anymore. Woo! I like to die. But we stayed out there till dark. Till dark. And I was wanting to quit about 3 o'clock. So 3 hours later, we quit. I was frozen.
That's great.
He probably would have stayed out there longer. That was a courtesy to you.
Oh, he would have. Yeah, if that seal had not come in, we would still be there. I promise you. You'd found a skeleton in the boat. Oh, all right. So you served in the military. You came out from the military, and did you start pastoring then, or had you pastored before you went into the military?
No, sir, I had not. The Lord was really dealing with me while at the concluding part of my time at Fort Bragg. And, I'd been saved for many years. I was blessed to grow up in a Christian home and have Christian parents, and everybody doesn't have that. And I'm thankful for the two that I had. And I trusted Christ to be Lord of my life when I was a young boy. And at the time, I gave all of me I knew to give to Jesus. But as I got older, I did not serve the Lord and walk with the Lord. And I especially did not when I was serving at Fort Bragg the way that I should have. But I got sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Come on.
And I'd gotten a job at a sawmill back in my hometown. And I had a criminal justice degree, and so I'd already signed papers. I was just days away from going to take my physical fitness test down at Garner to be a North Carolina highway patrolman. And, but God was dealing with me. And one night I got down beside my bed and I said, wherever you want me to go and whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. And I meant it. And August 13th, 1999, I was picking beans up in the field on our family farm, and I got down on my face in the middle of a row, and I told God I'd do what He was calling me to do, and He was leading me into ministry. Wow. And I knew that I didn't know a whole lot, and I needed to go to school, and so the Lord led me to go to seminary for a few years. In 2003, I became an associate pastor for a church in my hometown where I grew up. And then God led after my wife and I got married, God led us to Alabama to pastor a church near her hometown. And I'll just say, God's been extra good to me. It's always been near good water. So we were near Lake Martin. We were near the Cooster River, and so I was able to learn spots really well. And then it was in Hayesville for a while and learned Heron Lakes. And then moved and pastored near Lake Chickamauga, so I was able to learn the river pretty good.
Wow.
But I'd never pastored before. It was right after I got out that God called me into that.
I had a buddy of mine that God called him to start a youth home and for wayward youth, and he ended up going to West Virginia, and his wife said, I'll follow you anywhere, but there's wayward youth in Miami. Why are we going to West Virginia?
Yeah.
So now you're on Lake Chickamauga, one of the top bass lakes in America, and now you're in Wisconsin. That move,
yes, sir.
That's hard to explain as a fisherman. Why in the world would anybody leave Lake Chickamauga? You're 1 hour from Guntersville. I mean, you got 30 minutes from Chateau. You got all kind of fishing opportunities, and now you go where the water gets hard as a rock in December and January, where you could fish a buzz bait and catch fish on Chateau or Chickamauga or Guntersville, either one in December. Tell us about that move, because I think that's intriguing. I've heard the story. And
yes, sir.
How did you end up leaving a comfortable environment where you're pastoring a wonderful church in the Chattanooga area and move to where you are in Wisconsin? Tell us how that came about.
Well, it came apart, just God began to lay on my wife and I's heart together. And I will say, how blessed I am to have a godly wife and to have kids that are all in with what God has called us to do. But
That's
after 20
awesome.
years of ministry pastoring in the South, I began to look around and to see a lot of people that said they were saved. They didn't seem to have fruit in their life that would indicate. And that's not judging. If you called me and you told me that you had an apple orchard for sale and I show up in August and there's no apples on the tree, something's wrong. Because if it's really an apple tree, there's going to be some fruit. And if somebody's really born again, there's going to be some Book of Galatians 5 fruits of the Spirit that you're going to be able to see. There's going to be, if any man be in Christ, the Bible says he's a new creation. Old things have passed away and all things have become new. And so there's going to be hungers and appetites that can only come about by having spiritual life. And I was preaching through the book of John, in John chapter 9, a man who had been blind from his birth. And it's just right after John chapter 8 and verse 12, Jesus said, I'm the light of the world. And there was a blind man, and one thing he didn't have was light. He couldn't see anything, but he heard about the one who was the light of the world. And he came to Jesus for sight, and Jesus spat on the ground. He made little mud pies. He put them on the man's eyes. But then he told him, he says, go to the pool of Siloam, which is translated sent, He says, go and wash. And so Jesus made a way and told him about a way that he could have a cure for the big problem he had, and that was being blind. But he still had to go, and he still had to wash. And one day, as I was contemplating, why are there so many people who say they have sight, but they're groping in darkness like a blind person? It just began to lay on my heart that I was preaching to people that had 20, 30, 40 years worth of mud on their eyes. That's the gospel.
Wow.
But they'd never gone to the pool and washed. They had never repented of their sins, and they had never by faith trusted Jesus to be Lord of their life. And that really began to burden me about other parts of the country. And I started researching. Up here where we live, there's a bar every quarter mile. But where I grew up, there's a church every quarter. You don't need mile markers. There's just Baptist churches every mile. There's a church. And so I started researching. Within a 5-mile radius of the church that I was pastoring, Steeple, there were 12 Southern Baptist churches. Within a 10-mile radius, there were 44 Southern Baptist churches. Within a 25-mile radius, there were 280 Southern Baptist churches. Within a 50-mile radius, 650. And with a 100-mile radius of the church I was pastoring at Steeple, there were 2,876 Southern Baptist churches. Wow. And so my wife and I started studying, is this the same around the country? And it wasn't. A lot of the northern and the northern western states, that was not the case. And I know time is fleeting, but we found out finally looking that in the state of Wisconsin, there was one Southern Baptist church for every 72,000 people. Now, where I'd been pastoring in Tennessee, there's one Southern Baptist church for every 2,100 people. In the state of South Carolina, there's one Southern Baptist church for every 2,500 people. Well, in Wisconsin, there's one for every 75,000. Wow. And so we really began to research through that process, and God just kept laying on our heart that there's other people who've never had mud put on their eyes. They've never heard the gospel. They've never been given the opportunity to turn from their sin and receive Christ to be Lord of their life. And we began to pray about it, and we knew we had to have a job. We knew we had to have a place to live, and we just began to pray around those two things. And God allowed us to turn a hobby into a small business, and He opened the door for us to find a place here to live. And I will say for the first time, because He never would have wanted this shared, because He wanted God to get all the glory. It's hard. But God used a man by the name of Judd Coon. And his precious wife, Kathy, to help financially help us get, because I'd always been employed by churches. And I knew if we resigned from our church, we weren't going to have any income. And God laid on Judd Coon's heart. And Judd passed away last Sunday. And I get to go preach his funeral.
Yep, I wish I could be there, brother. I'm not going to be there, but I love Judd. I know exactly.
This weekend. But God used Judd and Kathy Coon to help us get here. And these things tear me up, because you find so few people in life that are willing to put action behind words. I hear so many people. You mentioned our country's in a dark place, and there's so many churches, they're praying for things to be different in our country. We know it makes no sense to pray for a harvest if you're not going to sow some seed in the ground. And it makes no sense to expect a harvest if you're not going to sow some seed in the ground. And if Christians aren't sharing the gospel where they live, work, and play, how can they expect things to be different in our country? Jesus says, I'm the light of the world. The reason that it's so dark in our country is because there's so much lostness, and the Holy Spirit doesn't live in people's hearts. And so God sent us to northern Wisconsin to do what we've always done, to plant disciple-making churches that wherever their mailbox is, that's their mission field. And they use their job, skills, passion, where they live, work, and play to build the kingdom of God. And we'll do that. We'll do that till we die, because that's the only thing that you're going to take to heaven. And I don't care whether it's lower class, middle class, upper class. Everybody has treasures. Everybody has things that they work for, but just one life will soon be passed. But only what's done for Jesus will last. And the only thing you're going to take to eternity with you is either a debt of sin or Christ and all the souls that you won for him. And there's no in between.
That is so awesome. I'm going to circle back because we're running out of time. MM26 custom lures are something that you use that says faith, family, and fishing. This is something that you have used to support your family while you're in this transitional mode, and tell them how they can get their very own MM and how they can go and look at the different models that you have. How you go about doing that?
It's, and just want to share, I mean, it doesn't matter, but it's just, it is what it is. It's MM26. When I was a platoon leader in 82nd, my company commander was Darren Wright. His call sign was Lone Star 6, and he was so good to me. He says, Chandler, we got to get you a call sign. He goes, you're going to be Mountain Man 26, because I was second platoon, and then I was 6th was leader. And so that's what MM26 stands for, is Mountain Man 26. That was my call sign.
That's
really
awesome.
cool.
That was my next question, what that was. I didn't get it.
MM26.
Okay.
Mountain Man 26.
Yeah, not 26, 26. I got you.
26.
Okay.
But you can go to mm26customlures.com. All the baits that we make for black bass are on there. We catch a lot of muskie on them too. We stay back ordered, and so everything's custom built. It's about 2-week turnaround. Usually we'll email somebody when their bait's in line for paint, and then we'll email them with shipping later. But a great, not only partner in the gospel, but just a partner in business is the Muskie Shop. Jim Stewart owns the Muskie Shop. It's the world's largest muskie shop. It's right here in Minocqua. And last winter, we started developing a line of muskie baits because we caught a lot of fish. And so Jim carries just about all of our baits. And you can buy off the muskieshop.com.
Okay.
Is their website. And it's just, they're great people, and it's a great shop.
All right, I'm going to circle back one more time. I'm bad to circle back.
He likes to circle.
I like to circle. I go around and circle. I used to drive a race car, so we went round, turn left. So, but I want to ask you, we talk about judging. People say, don't judge me. I like what you said. If you go to an apple orchard in August and there's no apples on the tree, there's something wrong. Do you not feel as a pastor, if I look at you and I don't see any fruit at all, and I determine that you're lost, and I share the gospel with you, and you're offended by that because you said, well, you judge me. You're judging me as a lost man. I'm not lost. I got saved. Do you not think it's a greater violation to look at a man and assume he's saved and judge him saved and never witness to him? Then
Absolutely.
Yeah, what
Absolutely.
damage have you done if you asked a Christian man or a Christian woman? You've done no damage. But if you judge your neighbor as a Christian when he's not, and you fail to share the gospel, I think that's a much greater violation than if you ask somebody if they're saved and they are, and they're offended by it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. The greatest sins within the life of the church are not sins of commission, but they're sins of omission. It's not living on mission. It's not sharing the gospel. Jesus says, you will be my witnesses, begin at Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the uttermost parts. And so that is a command. Someone says, well, what's it your business? No, that is my business. That's the business that Christ has given all people, is to share the gospel with others.
Make disciples.
And that is to make followers of Christ who Luke 9:23, they daily forsake all and follow Christ, all in. And so the mission's 3 words: reach, teach, encourage. You reach them with the gospel, teach them, observe all things whatsoever I've commanded them. And everybody needs encouragement. We encourage people to finish strong. Just like the Apostle Paul, Acts 20, verse 24, but none of these things move me, nor do I count my life dear to myself, so that I may finish my race with joy and the ministry which I received from the Lord Jesus, to testify the gospel of the grace of God. And I want everybody to finish well. It matters how you
Right.
start.
Oh, yeah,
But
absolutely.
it matters how you finish.
Oh, yeah,
It
yeah.
matters how you
Yeah,
finish.
yeah. My dad was a drunk for 50 years. He lived for 5 years witnessing to every person he saw. So he started very bad, but he finished strong. And it's never too
Yes, sir.
late. It's never too late, man. As long
No,
as you
sir.
got breath in your lungs, God is able to save you. And that's our message. And hey, you and I got to get in the boat together. We might not catch fish, but we're gonna have some some good spiritual time together, brother. And I thank you so much for
Thank you.
for coming on and teaching us about the glide bait and teaching me. I'm gonna go look at your video and see how to tie these hooks on instead of using
Yes,
the
sir.
split rings, because I know they don't load that bait and come off. And I appreciate you telling them how to get a hold of their very own. Mountain Man
Yes, sir.
26.
Yes.
Mountain Man
26.
26.
Mountain Man
I
26.
got you now. I
That's
got
funny.
you.
Hey, and I promised my boys, sir, that I would say that in the words of Ben Parker, this has been more fun than killing a dog.
Oh, you pulled that one out of the
man.
archives. Oh, Lord. I'll have to explain that next week. But
This has been awesome.
it has been. Hey, it is more fun than anything. I really appreciate you being on, brother. And
Thank you, sir.
yes, sir. God bless you. And I hope everything goes well at the funeral with Judd.
Yeah, it was nice to
Thank
meet
you, sir. You too, Sarah Beth. I appreciate you praying for us, Brother Hank.
Yes, sir. We're going to be doing it, brother. And
Thank you so much for watching. You can check out all of our links from our sponsors, and you can check out the links to MM26 down in the description below. But thank you guys for watching. See you next week.
Mountain Man 26. I didn't know what MM26 was. It is not 26. It's Mountain Man 26. MM26. Hey, I'd like to thank Mossy Oak Properties and Mossy Oak NativNurseries, Mossy Oak. I'd like to thank my friends at LiquiMoly. Man, what a great product they have. And I want to thank you for being with us. God bless you. We'll see you next week. I'm Hank Parker.
All right, perfect.